Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know you're applauding for the video. It's always better than the speech, shorter and more exciting. Really was well done, though. Why don't we just don't get up with a good round of applause? That was really spectacular. Rowena who put it together. I have some prepared remarks, but there's a couple things that I want to touch on. First, to thank Mickey and Frank and Jeff for a very thorough, I think, kind of rendition. A lot of things going on in the city, and a very kind introduction. Frank, we're joking for a second. You said second, and then I think Jeff or Mickey leaned over and said third. Where is he, Frank? Third state of the city. And there's a point where nostalgia kicked in. It's my 15th. 15th state of the city, spanning, I hate to do this, a quarter century. So there's a lot that kind of gets taken in, looking at Terry over there. He's still looking young, but Terry's over there nonetheless. And so many others. City staff is here, and I don't mean staff with any term that's not complimentary, who works very hard on putting a lot of stuff together that we'll talk about. I can't go through everyone, but if they would stand, you give them a round of applause, because everything good that's happening in the city, they get credit for on the city side. If you're any part of city government, Gomes will be the first one up. And anything that goes wrong, don't blame me, blame John Gomes. We have a wonderful, not quite a quorum, I hope, because Brian Luckhart's here. If there's a quorum, we'd have an illegal meeting of the City Council. So I want to acknowledge, and I won't even do it individually because there is enough. If you'd stand, let's recognize the hardworking members of the Bridgeport City Council for the job they do year in and year out. The opportunity to kind of think back a little bit. My mom and dad and my sister are here, so I'm blessed with family. But when I think about it, I can think back to probably one of my first, or it couldn't have been my first because my children weren't born then. But the earlier ones were they're this big now. They'd be the little ones. Mickey knows. They said I can't make any jokes about your age this year, Mickey, so I won't, okay? But kids were young and coming to these things, and they're grown now, and you watch time go by. But at the same time, when you see a video or you reflect on some of the work that we've done collectively, it's a good feeling. And probably too much information, but even talking to Brian Luckert sometimes is revealing. And we had a conversation coming in. It didn't need an FOI to get that part of it, right, Brian? And we talked about the job being done in the city and how we're working together and things that are happening. And we also talked about what may or may not happen on a state level and how that all kind of fits in. And it's interesting. You learn from your children. Of course, I'm lucky enough to still learn from my parents. So my dad said, gee, I've been coming to a lot of these state of the city breakfasts, and I want to compliment the Trev's family because they always do a great job. He said, but that other project you're working on, that could really help the city a lot. And I, you know how parents sometimes talk and you try to figure it out. So I said, you mean the casino? He goes, no, that other project you're working on can really help the city a lot. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, I've been to a lot of the State of the City addresses, but I've never been to a State of the State address. So we're working on that one, Dad, and we'll see what we can do. But another topic for another time, and how that fit into some of the things we're talking about. But it's a great opportunity to kind of bond a little bit again in a more formal context and go through some of what Jeff had the opportunity to talk about, and really what's going on in the city and what's going on in the state, and how I think we shine to a certain extent. Struggles nonetheless, but shine is the state's largest city, making progress amidst sometimes what seem to be insurmountable or odds that stack up against us. So let's begin. I want to thank the members of the Chamber, the Bridgeport Regional Business Council, of course the elected officials and the honored guests that are here. Each year, the State of the City Address gives us an opportunity to reflect, as I've said, on the year that's passed and set an agenda that will move our city forward for the year to come. And today I'm proud to share the great progress that the city of Bridgeport has made over this past year, especially in the areas of economic development. However, knowing the fiscal challenges that have faced our state and many municipalities over this past year, I think it's important to start by putting the state of our city into context. Last year, continuing with a substantial state budget deficit, the General Assembly passed the budget. This was only after a prolonged and contentious session. The budget that was ultimately reached included painful cuts to city programs that serve our most vulnerable citizens, and our city was forced to deal with a $17 million cut in state aid. Rating agencies downgraded the state and several municipalities in the wake of this fiscal instability, and if not for a $550 million bailout, the city of Hartford was surely on the path to bankruptcy. While here in Bridgeport, as a result, I'd like to think of prudent fiscal planning coupled with, at times, bold and decisive action taken by members of the administration and the city council. The city of Bridgeport continues to weather this storm. While many communities have been in a situation where they've been compelled to cut back on services and making it hard to attract and retain jobs, our city continues to attract investment in jobs by making investments in public safety and infrastructure. And while a number of major businesses have announced that they're leaving the state, here in Bridgeport, others, as we'll talk about, are moving in and bringing with them millions of dollars in investment and jobs. And while other communities are seeing their mill rates increase, I've, as recently as this past Monday, presented a budget to the City Council that once again holds the line on property taxes. Now, to be clear, we're fighting hard every day and making progress with attracting businesses and jobs, increasing the level of quality of services while holding the line on taxes. But the bigger picture here in the context, Connecticut is far from ideal. Like other urban communities, our schools in many ways remain unfunded by the state. Cuts, as I've mentioned, in state aid put an even greater strain on our budget. Our residents continue to be burdened by higher property taxes and motor vehicle taxes. And that's why, in many ways, I continue to be a strong advocate for a consistent, comprehensive, urban policy that lifts up Bridgeport and all of our cities. And I'll continue to fight for Bridgeport's priorities because I fundamentally believe that we need to make Bridgeport and all of our cities, as I refer to all over the state, the engines that will help revive and then drive a new Connecticut economy. Now, if this is to happen, that Bridgeport and all the cities are to be centers of growth for the state, we have to be steadfast and determined in our commitment to foster economic development and jobs, and unwavering in our effort to bring new opportunities to the communities and all the neighborhoods that we serve. And as we strive each day to live up to what I like to think at times feels like an awesome responsibility, I'm proud to say that because of many of you, that there's over $2.5 billion worth of proposed economic development projects in the city of Bridgeport, many of which are under construction or scheduled to start this year in 2018. And so let's talk about some of them. Just in the downtown, there's an $18 million, you call it $20 million renovation in McClevey Square. It's brought in some 32 apartments in the heart of downtown with Fourstone. The renovations also include the German-style beer hall that recently opened next to the soon-to-be launched, you saw the picture of a comedy club to launch this month. In downtown North, which we like to refer to it, the Jason Newfield project on Main and Golden Hill just closed on $25 million in financing. That'll occupy one city block, and this project will renovate 2 prominent historic buildings and make them into 106 apartments that bring 8,000 square feet of new retail to the core of the city. Also mentioned by Jeff and seen in the renderings in the video, in that same part of the city, just this past December, we signed a development agreement with Exact Capital from New York to renovate the Poli and Majestic theaters. Over $400 million will be invested in this project alone, including transforming theater buildings into a new $55 million 200-room hotel. And across the street, as we mentioned, we'll build the 2 tallest buildings in Bridgeport with residential water views. This huge urban redevelopment project will not only create jobs, but obviously to add to our city's tax base growth, but I think somewhat impressively to our skyline as well. And not to be outdone, on the south end of Main Street, the city and Live Nation, a company headquartered out of Beverly Hills, California, in partnership with Howard Safan, will break ground this spring, on which you've seen is an awesome rendition of what will be there, an outdoor amphitheater. Topped by a dramatic, iconic design, this facility is going to be a landmark visible from I-95, or if you listen to his partner, Jim Koplik, he tells me that once the roof's lit up, along with the Egyptian pyramids and the Great Wall of China, we're going to be able to see the amphitheater from outer space. So, I don't know, Jim's pretty good on his word, isn't he, Howard? In all seriousness, as more and more people from all over Connecticut and the tri-state area pass through Connecticut to visit this amphitheater, they will see how partnerships between business and government can produce great results. These job-creating development projects are exactly the kind of transformational change that we need downtown, all over our city, and boldly, I might say, frankly, all over Connecticut, to bring in jobs and economic growth. As part of this, I like to refer to as the downtown renaissance. Several new restaurants have opened here, joining the ranks of Ralph and Richie's, Joseph, Tiago's, Avocello's, Milano's, and Brewport. There's 4 new great restaurants that have already demonstrated the potential to attract customers to Bridgeport. Harlan House at McClevey Square, Eat Noodle on Fairfield Avenue, Papa's Pizza on Broad Street, and Fun Shells Americana on Main Street. That was the one we were cutting with the big scissors, cutting the ribbon on. And these new eateries in just the past year represent another very positive trend in downtown Bridgeport as it becomes more of this destination for dining and entertainment. Now, part of improving the downtown, in my view, is a serious commitment by the city for capital improvements. Capital funds are being invested to make improvements with the support of the City Council for sidewalks and pedestrian ways and streetlights and parking. And we'll soon break ground on a new high-speed ferry dock, which will support ferry service between Bridgeport and other cities. And we'll also be breaking ground this year on the Water Street Intermodal project by the train station. And that'll include streetscapes and design improvements for the downtown transit center. And maybe not as glamorous, but we're finalizing plans for a $12 million redesign of Lafayette Circle in front of Joseph's. And on the drawing board, which I think is critically important as a transportation project, is the reconstruction or new construction of the Congress Street Bridge, which has been closed for too long. As we know from dynamics of how our city is set up, this bridge will reconnect the downtown and our east side neighborhoods. I think it's a big deal. Speaking of big deals and speaking of the east side, if anybody's driven by Steel Point, as you've seen in the picture, you've recently noticed that in addition to Bass Pro and Chipotle and Starbucks, and the $22 million bulkhead that was award-winning that's been completed, Steve made sure I knew that was award-winning, as it should be. It's phenomenal. There's steel coming out of the ground. So everybody who drives by now sees, they don't hear about us talking about progress on what will be ultimately $1 billion development site. They're seeing steel come up. That's the Dock Masters building, and it's currently under construction and is scheduled to be completed this year, and it's going to feature a beautiful new restaurant and boardwalk along with a 200-slip marina. This is going to be followed by the next phase of Steel Point, kicking off later this year. Will include 105 new, privately financed, high-end apartments. Not bad. Steel Point, once built, I like the way Jeff described it, but I'll describe it too, will be $1 billion development right here in Bridgeport that transforms the Bridgeport waterfront. How about that? Also transformational on the east side is Crescent Crossing project. And those of us who've been around remember that was the former Father Panic Village site. It's a $75 million project with 180 new housing units. And seeing what's been accomplished at that site thus far gives me confidence and excitement for the third and final phase of that project. It was there a couple days ago visiting someone, and it just astounds me how beautiful a transformation can be from what was at best referred to as tired former public housing into what is beautiful. I saw in the way it's set up with the courtyard in the middle, the snowstorm, the kids were off from school, and I was up in one of the apartments with the granite countertops, which I don't even have in my apartment, and kids were playing in the courtyard, building a snowman, in what was formerly a place where police cars had to pull out on New Year's Eve because of their fear for their own, for gunshots being fired. In the East End, we're focusing on that neighborhood's commercial corridor. And I know both of the council men, I don't mean to refer to Anita as a man, councilwoman, and Councilman Newton are here. The Civic Block, which will likely be a $20 million redevelopment project and the first major urban redevelopment that the East End has seen on that commercial corridor, I think, Ernie, in 40 years. In 40 years, I don't think we've seen anything go on Stratford Avenue. Because of your hard work and your leadership and others in the support of the City Council and Economic Development Department, this includes a new library, which will serve as the anchor for the neighborhood retail complex. I like to call it in the heart of the East End. It's our hope that that project will continue to build the momentum and optimism for the future growth and development of the East End neighborhood. Now, even in the North End, finally after a decade, I know Michelle's here, the Boys and Girls Club is being demolished. The old Boys and Girls Club is being demolished and replaced by a new $12 million facility for young people all over the city, but built in the North End. I'd like to thank the Wakemans for their leadership on this project and their willingness to invest in our children. I don't know if anybody's here, but let's give them a round of applause. This has been long in coming and serves young people, youth in our city. And if you allow me to continue with the theme of transformation for a few more minutes from the old to the new, I think few projects, and I talk about this everywhere because people who drive through Bridgeport, come in especially south to north through Fairfield, will identify with this. Few projects are as visible right now as the Cherry Street LOFTS projects in the West End. What has long been a blighted eyesore for travelers on I-95 and the train is being currently transformed by a $145 million investment into housing, a charter school, and retail as part of a $250 million West End master plan by Gary and Corvus Capital. As this project moves forward, we should again note the role being played by a New York, an out-of-state company, investing here in the Bridgeport area or in Bridgeport as they see opportunity. They're improving the image of the city while creating jobs. Gary, you guys, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, your investment, and your confidence in the city of Bridgeport. In the south end, on Park Avenue, this summer you'll see construction begin on a new $65 million development known as Windward Commons. At this gateway site along the railway tracks, the former Marina Village is being transformed into mixed income development. The first phase of this project includes the construction of 60 new apartments as well as a community health care facility on the ground floor. And our councilwoman's here from that district, and she's been a leader on making sure this project stays on track. So let's give them a round of applause again. It's a huge project converting public housing into better living and a better opportunity in that. Also in the south end, a New Jersey company that's coming to Connecticut, was mentioned already, investing here in Bridgeport with $500 million and hundreds of jobs. It's these kind of projects, and if they were happening all over Connecticut, instead of companies leaving, I believe our entire state economy would be changed dramatically for the better. PSEG is constructing a new $550 million, 485 megawatt natural gas power plant. This state-of-the-art facility represents the single largest private investment in Bridgeport's recent history, substantial tax-based growth, and the creation of some 300 jobs. And that's not all. A whole nother dimension to this. The companies agreed as part of the deal to decommission the last coal-burning plant in the state of Connecticut that sits on Bridgeport's waterfront. The project helps the environment from the transition from coal to natural gas. It creates jobs, and of course, will create what is likely to be a wonderful future redevelopment site as we look forward to continuing the plan for Bridgeport's future on what would have been the former site of the UI. We thank PSEG, and I know there's representatives from PSEG here, and look forward to that project's completion. Let's give them a round of applause, too. Hard work in the city. And finally, in the economic development, I firmly believe, as I'm sure you do, and one of the key elements of improving the economic development picture of Bridgeport as Connecticut's largest city is to continue to attract these big-name companies to invest here and create jobs. This past year, an exciting opportunity was presented to Bridgeport by MGM, a proposal to build a $700 million resort along Bridgeport's waterfront. The resort, as is described, would feature a 300-room hotel, retail, live entertainment, a world-class casino, and a number of dining options. The MGM Bridgeport project would create 7,000 jobs, 2,000 of which are permanent jobs. In addition to jobs, this announcement also represents for Bridgeport and for the state another premier company wanting to move into Connecticut, specifically here in Bridgeport, and they want to come and invest hundreds of millions of dollars. They want to pay the state hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions a year to the city, all, as was mentioned, while creating thousands of jobs. As Frank mentioned, and I will join you and members of the Bridgeport legislative delegation and those legislators from around the state that support our cause and call on the General Assembly to pass legislation authorizing an open, transparent bidding process for this job creator this session. Do you agree with me? So, now last year when I was here, I told you the Bridgeport future was bright because of the number and size of projects moving forward throughout the city. And now today, thanks to the hard work of OPED, so many others, our city council, OPED under the leadership of Tom Gill, and really all of you, real, tangible, and visible progress has been made. Phase 2 of Crescent Crossing has been completed. The work at McLeavy Square is nearly finished. PSEG's new gas plant is taking shape. The Dockmaster is building at Steel Point. Is just the beginning of several great developments on the waterfront in the city. Meanwhile, developers like Exact Capitals was mentioned and MGM have each proposed spending hundreds of millions of dollars in the city, and Live Nation, as was mentioned, has chosen Bridgeport's new amphitheater as its next opportunity for concert goers. Our police manning levels are up. Taxes are being held down. So it's for these and many other reasons that today I can say with great confidence that the state of our city is strong and the future of our city looks brighter every day. Now, while bricks and mortar are fundamentally important, of course, to the success of the city, people are our most valuable asset. And that's why improving public safety has been my top priority as mayor. Just a few weeks ago, we fulfilled one of my commitments to add 100 new police officers to the Bridgeport Police Department. Chief Perez and I welcomed each of these new recruits. We've had 4 classes attend the academy in the last 2 years. That's more officers than were hired in the last 10 years. These new officers are going to go a long way towards building a robust community police strategy in the city. And likewise, the fire department, under Chief Thode, has sent its 4th class of recruits, totaling 46 new firefighters, to that academy in less than 2 years. So, although I get to talk about it here, I'd like to give these 2 chiefs, if they'd stand, a round of applause for their hard work. I think it's also important to note that, and I'm pleased to say that under the leadership of Chief Perez, the Bridgeport Police Department is currently undergoing a great period of modernization and transition, in some ways, into this new technology of the 21st century. The police department is piloting dash cams and body cam technology with the goal of bringing increased transparency to the department, as well as protecting both our officers and the public. And so I'm thanking the members of the department and the public for supporting these and other important initiatives. These help to make the Bridgeport Police Department a model, I think, nationally as we move forward on transparency and community relations in what are sometimes difficult times for police departments. And while our city continues to invest in the safety of our communities, we know that one of the strongest ways to protect and build our communities is through education. Locally, we have partnered strongly with the Board of Education by spending some $200 million improving the physical environment in which our students learn. Today, the renovations at Central High School, was in the video, is ongoing and nearly completed. The new state-of-the-art Harding High School is almost finished as well. Next up will be Bassick High School, where improvements are long overdue. However, these new buildings are not enough, in my view, to remedy the inequities that exist in the state with respect to school funding. Just a few months ago, the state Supreme Court dealt a blow to our schools by ruling against us in a lawsuit challenging the educational cost-sharing formula which underfunds our schools year after year. Though the lawsuit may be over, our fight for a fairer formula is not. We have a superintendent, a great superintendent, outstanding teachers and administrators, and remarkable students. I'd like to, one, acknowledge them for their hard work. And even though I know the superintendent couldn't make it because she was in a meeting in Hartford, I'd like to give her and all of them a round of applause for their hard work in teaching and mentoring our young people under very difficult circumstances with exceptional and outstanding results. Let's give them a round of applause for all those that helped in our school system. And once again, I'll join our superintendent and our fellow urban school districts in calling for legislative action on this issue. in one of the largest school districts in the state. Heroic work, as I've said, is being done every day to teach in Bridgeport some 22,000 students without the equal opportunity guaranteed to them, in my view, as a matter of law. It is time that, as a matter of what is fair and right, that we give, and I feel strongly about this, our students the equal opportunity to live up to their God-given potential. Now, our city is also fortunate to have institutions of higher learning that provide excellent educational opportunities for our young people. Today, I'd like to highlight two of them. First, this year's marks the 50th anniversary of Housatonic Community College. Centerpiece for downtown was moved and built, and I think it's been lauded all over the state for not just for the facility and the new $45 million addition, but for the way that it allows and connects for especially inner city youth, Bridgeport youth in many instances, who wouldn't have another educational opportunity, a chance to step up and get a degree. After 50 years of service to the greater Bridgeport area, the college continues to build new programs and equip our young people with the skills of the future. They've partnered with many in this room. They've partnered with businesses and allowed for curriculum that has done 100% replacement many times for students that have partaken in that curriculum. I want to thank the college for its commitment to higher learning, and I look forward to them providing another 50 years of education here in the city of Bridgeport. I'd also like to highlight the University of Bridgeport. And before I get to someone who I'd like to acknowledge, Professor Lay is here. You don't know him, but we teach a course together. Actually, he teaches, and I think I'm kind of amusing to the students more than anything. But last night, Tuesday nights, and I actually went to class and we practiced. We went and we showed them what it was like to give a State of the City address. So what I kind of do is I add real-time local government perspective to a very focused curriculum by the professor about government, American government on multiple levels. So Professor, I want to thank you for allowing me last night with students. Let's give Professor Lay a round of applause for what he does. Stand up, Professor. Come on. And I also want to recognize a man that I think we all know has been dedicated to higher learning, has been a great friend, and has worked to what needed to be done. I think when I first came in to help rekindle and put back together a relationship between the city and the university. He served as the president of the university since 2000, and in many ways we're sad to see him go. He's retiring this year. President Neil Salona, will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for your service. So those of you that like the timing and the length of the video more than my speech, we're getting close to the end. But I think it's important. Along with good, strong public schools, I strongly believe that city government has to set the conditions for successful neighborhoods by keeping our city clean. You know, some people say, that's not as important as it is. Whether you go to the broken window theory or whatever, I think that cleanliness, whether it's neighborhood blight or just litter on the streets, if you've ever worked with me or driven around with me, pick up the phone, and it's one of those things that just I found bothersome. And I'm convinced that unless we have a city that is clean, we're not going to be successful in attracting new residents and businesses to Bridgeport. And that's why last year we launched a citywide campaign called Park City, Picking It Up, in an effort to tackle blight, litter, and illegal dumping in every neighborhood, as I like to say, on every street and on every curbside in the city. And thus far, as part of that, on a bigger picture, we've knocked down some 30 blighted structures in various neighborhoods, and there's 11 more currently in progress. And our health and our public facilities departments have engaged our NRZs, Neighborhood Revitalization Zone groups, in an effort to clean up neighborhoods. And we hope that our residents and visitors enjoy what you'll soon see as 20,000 new flower bulbs that were planted throughout the city and produce the flowers we'd like to see spring up in the city. People remember from last time we were in. It lit up the esplanades and our parks and our neighborhoods. By the way, of speaking of keeping the city clean, I think you'll agree that the Public Facilities Department has done a great job in keeping our streets clean, but also clear during snowstorms, much better than I think we've had in the past. So, he doesn't like me to do this, but let's thank the Public Facilities Director, John Rickey, along with his team, for the great job they continue to do for all of us. And I don't buy this, but he says they do such a great job. They get guys out there that grab the snowflakes before they touch the ground. Where's Rowena? I told you that wasn't a good joke. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't briefly highlight progress that the city of Bridgeport has made in the area of resiliency. It was mentioned as a $50 million resiliency grant for our waterfront and sustainability. Just a few months ago, we launched, in addition to other things that I'll just highlight here, the new microgrid at City Hall. That will ensure that major city operations at the police department, fire department, and City Hall remain online during any outages for any storms. And last year, Bridgeport announced efforts to build the first thermal heating loop of its kind in the United States. This project, which was nationally recognized by the U.S. Conference of Mayors and even internationally by environmental organizations, is a European technology that will provide heat and hot water in our downtown area with zero carbon footprint. Once again, Bridgeport's leading the way, this time not just leading the way in Connecticut, but nationally as well on energy conservation and sustainability. I know Dan's here. Dan, would you guys stand, Dan Donovan, for their not only innovation, but their investment commitment. Okay. So as I look out over this room and think about the collective investment that all of you have made and continue to make in Bridgeport's future. You know, you live here, you work here, you're building here, you're bringing businesses here. Now more than ever, we have a great opportunity to harness the potential of our city, and I like to think bring it to the next level. So let's resolve today to work together to build up our city, promote its growth, and make it, as I've said before, an engine that drives not just our local economy, but the new Connecticut economy. A former mayor of Bridgeport, the great showman P.T. Barnum once said, "Whatever you do, do with all your might. Fortune always favors the brave." So let's continue to work together to bring good fortune to all of us and all the people of the city of Bridgeport. Thank you and God bless. It's been a real pleasure. Appreciate it. Thanks.